Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio, where we provide actionable health information on a week-to-week basis that can help you improve your life. Feel free to head over to justinhealth.com, where we have various opt-in video series on more in-depth health topics such as female hormones, thyroid, and gut health. Also, while you're there, feel free and schedule a consult with myself, Dr. J, and or my colleagues. We're available worldwide to provide natural health support for any of your major health issues. Again, welcome to the podcast and enjoy the show. Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani here. I'm with Evan Brand. Today we're going to be giving you guys a live coronavirus update. Want to tell you about our thoughts and things, and of course just highlight offensive approaches to supporting your immune system. Most approaches are totally defensive. Social distancing, quarantine, washing your hands, all fine and dandy. But those are all defensive approaches. We want to talk about offensive approaches where you guys can be in the driver's seat. Evan, how are we doing this morning?
I'm doing well, and let's give a brief intro to who we are in case people are new to the podcast. So, Dr. Justin Marchegiani, he is a chiropractic doc who's studied functional medicine extensively for over a decade. He's successfully treated thousands and thousands of patients around the world, and he works virtually where he sends lab tests to people's homes and creates functional medicine programs to find and fix the root cause of various health issues. I do the same, but I'm not a chiropractor. I have other functional medicine credentials and also work with people online worldwide. So that's what we do on a day-to-day basis, is help people reverse health issues that they previously had trouble with and maybe got limited results working with the conventional medical model. And we had our own health struggles that led us into fixing our own problems, which is why we love and we're so passionate about what we do. So that's the brief bio behind us. And what kind of spurred today's conversation is that we were looking at some stats here, and many people have heard about Italy being a huge hotspot, so to speak, of this whole coronavirus issue, and Italy having massive amounts of infection and higher rates of death and such. But what we're finding now is even higher percentage of comorbidities than what we reported on last time. We reported on a smaller number. Now it's looking like more than 99%. 99% of fatalities from COVID occurred among people who had underlying medical condition. And so it showed that 0.8, so less than 1% of people who died had no underlying condition at all. So let me just break it down real quick. 76% had high blood pressure, almost 36% had diabetes, 33% had heart disease. That is insane.
100%. Also, I'm going to share on screen with you guys as well so you guys can see, according to the Telegraph, on reevaluation by the National Institute of Health, only 12% of death certificates show in Italy a direct cause from coronavirus, while 88% of those who had died on the death certificate had at least one pre-morbidity, but also maybe up to 2 to 3. So I think that's also pretty powerful, is out of all the causes of death on there, only 12% they can show a direct cause to. And I'll put this on screen here so you guys can see what I'm seeing here. So right here, this is the Telegraph article. Only 12% of death certificates show a direct causality. That's important to know. And when Evan and I watch the news, how we do it is we compartmentalize opinion and the pundits talking head with the data. So ideally, you just try to get the data, and then you try to formulate your opinion versus get swayed by a talking head. Now, the better the news station, people just give you more of the data versus their opinion, and that's better. A lot of times the opinion and the data do not go hand in hand for obvious reasons, right? Fear sells. If it leads, it bleeds. And so we always want to make sure you guys are watching things with a compartmentalized brain so you don't fall for it. So
and it's tough to do. And it's tough to do,
is.
Right? What you're saying sounds easy, but it's tough because sometimes the data may be mixed in with a testimonial, and then there's a footage of a hospital, and then there's like a lady walking in a mask and some B-roll footage. So it's really tough to dissect that. It's really tough to just pull out what you need from it.
Yeah, and I recommend don't ever fall for any exposés. When someone's doing a one-off on someone dying, don't ever fall for that, because number one is people die all the time, and you don't know what their health history is. You don't know anything about their life. Number two, for instance, 150 people die a year, 150 kids die a year of the flu. You don't see any expose on kids dying. You could do an expose literally every single day on a child dying of the flu throughout the winter, maybe even twice a day, right? But you don't see that, right? So why, right? There's a reason why. They're trying to get you to feel something that they're not really caring about that much when the flu's in town, so to speak. So ignore that. You want to look at the global percentage. You want to look at averages across the board. That's the better way to handle it so you don't fall prey.
Yeah, and you're talking about how they'll just do a specific story on this woman and how she had 3 kids and she worked 2 jobs and she worked so hard, and here's her dog and what are they going to do with her dog now that she's gone? That kind of stuff. You're talking about where it's more emotionally focused on one person, and they separate they kind of leave the statistics away and hyper focus in. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So they'll hyper focus in. They won't give you, of course, most people aren't going to get a background on their health because of all the HIPAA stuff, right? So they're not going to really give a big background on their health or comorbidities or even what their diet or lifestyle is like. So then a lot of people just feel like it could creep up on them and get them just as easily, right? And that, I think, disempowers people. So I recommend staying away from any of the one-off exposés and just kind of look at the global statistics, because that gives you a better perspective on what's happening. And the global statistics show, 99% plus are going to have comorbidities. That's really important. And most of the comorbidities, as I've already shown, involve some level of diabetes and blood sugar dysregulation, 60+%. There was a journal article in the New England Journal of Medicine last month looking at a lot of people that died up in Seattle, and 60+% had diabetes. Now, once you have diabetes, 80% of diabetes people are going to have kidney issues. So if you have kidney issues, then you probably also have blood pressure issues. So once you have blood sugar issues, you're going to have 2 or 3 comorbidities over time, just because. So the older you are, the reason why the elderly are so at risk is because chronic degenerative diseases, they're just that. They're chronic. So bad decisions made today compound over time. Just like if you invest money when you're younger, in your 20s and 30s, compound interest grows it, so it's bigger and better in your 50s, 60s, 70s. Same thing with bad habits and disease. We start putting bad habits in the health bank, and that starts to compound over time, and we start generating symptoms and disease over time, just like wealth investments generate wealth over time. So keep that in the back of your mind. Number 2, elderly are going to have typically less vitamin D. They're going to be indoors a lot more. They're also going to have less hydrochloric acid. And then a lot of less hydrochloric acid means they're not going to be breaking down protein as well. They're going to have less muscle mass because they're not having protein. They're also going to be on more medications, and those medications create more side effects. And remember, antibodies, and part of your immune response is antibodies are made from protein. So if we don't have or digest enough protein, that's going to be a problem. And then if we don't have the minerals like zinc or magnesium, that's going to create more problems. So it's not like because you're elderly, and you hit a certain age, you're just magically susceptible. There are key physiological things that happen over time that make elderly folk more susceptible. And here are the things that we can do to stop it. And that's the digestion, the vitamin D, the blood sugar issues, right? The older and the longer you have dysglycemia, right? Imbalanced blood sugar from too much carbs or refined carbohydrate or acellular carbs, over time, those insulin cells will get numb. And that's a big mechanism with this whole thing that's happening here.
Yep, well said. And the fact, too, the sedentary lifestyle that older people are having, too. I mean, especially if you're someone who's in a nursing home, for example. I've never heard of a story of, a client of mine who had a parent or a grandparent in a nursing home going and getting an exercise program in. It's not like they're getting 5 days a week of high-intensity interval training or anything like that. So it's just... it's crazy. And you mentioned the bad habits. So what do you mean by the bad habits? Well, this is mainly like the high carbohydrate processed food diet that most people are on. I mean, if you look at in general, unfortunately, if you look at my grandparents' pantry, it's loaded full of garbage, honey buns and peanut butter crackers and hydrogenated oils and corn syrup and chocolate milk. I mean, just crazy, right? It's really, really bad stuff. So there was a lady named Dr. Sandra Weber. She's the president of the American Association of Clinical Endocrinologists. She said, "We know that if you do not have good glucose control, you're at high risk for infection, including viruses and presumably this one, COVID-19 as well. Improving glucose control would put you in a situation where you would have better immune function." So, I mean, that's straight from the horse's mouth there. If you want somebody who's established and has a good pulse on this, really beating and reversing insulin resistance should be your number one focus right now. So instead of being upset, here's something kind of embarrassing, but here it is. You ready to hear it? So my wife's sister and their whole family. They're posting all these challenges, these quarantine challenges they're doing. And their latest challenge that they're sharing with everyone on the world by posting on social media is the best store-bought cookie challenge. And her sister's husband, he already has diabetes, but here they are going to the grocery and they are buying 10 different brands. I'm talking Oreos, the fudge-covered Oreos, the Elmer Fudd cookies, I don't even know all of them. And let's eat every single cookie to figure out, during our quarantine period, what is the best store-bought cookie. It's like, no, don't you get it? You're missing the whole point of this. So it's crazy. People would think that based on us being who we are, that anybody close to us would have it all figured out, right? That all of our family members and friends and all that would just have it so dialed in. But unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're never going to be a prophet in your own town, right? That's kind of a biblical quote there. So keep that in the back of your head. The people closest to you tend to underappreciate the information you bring to the table. So just kind of looking at a couple of things here. Let's go look at some of the statistics. I want to break it all down. We're over the hump. My original estimates, I said half of the flu would kind of be where we're going to be at overall from a death perspective. The problem is, it may even be way less than that. The problem is the criteria for diagnosis on the coronavirus is very difficult. Number one, the symptoms overlap with a lot of other diseases, i.e. flu, other types of coronaviruses, other types of rhinovirus. There's a big overlap there, number one. Number two, because the testing is so, let's just say, shoddy, meaning it's a 50 to 80% false positive on that, 30% I think on the sensitivity. So there's a great chance of a lot of false positives. So that's going to aid in more positive diagnoses. And you could have another virus, another issue that could look like it, and then you could have that one be diagnosed because it's false positive. Number two, on the vital and human statistics criteria, you don't even have to have a positive test to get diagnosed. I'll say that again.
Please do.
You do not have to have a positive test to diagnose. Let's go look at the data. Bringing you guys the actual facts. All right, so this is an article right here. This is, you guys can see it. This is the guidance for certifying deaths due to coronavirus 2019. This is the Vital Statistics Reporting Guide. This is 2020. Okay, this came out last week.
And let me just preface this by saying this is absolutely insane what you were about to show us, because this is why the numbers, even though the numbers look far better than initially predicted, the numbers are actually probably even better than that based on what you're about to read. Yeah,
so number one is, let's look at this. So this is how they're diagnosed. In case where a definitive diagnosis of COVID-19 cannot be made, but it's suspected or likely, right, the circumstances are compelling within a reasonable degree. Remember, the symptoms for COVID-19 are going to overlap flu and many other respiratory viruses. Lung issues, breathing, hypoxia, potential pneumonia, symptoms in and around that. On a death certificate so right here. It is acceptable to report COVID-19 on a death certificate as probable or presumed. In these instances, certifiers should use their best clinical judgment to determine COVID-19 infection was likely. However, please note that testing for COVID-19 should be conducted whenever possible. So what they're implying here is that you do not need testing to make that diagnosis. So whenever it's possible, but you can still make it without the diagnosis because it's probable or presumed. So if you presume it based on symptomatic significance or symptomatic parity, it seems similar, right? Then you can make that diagnosis. So that's just want to show you the exact criteria that they're looking at. All right.
And this is,
does that make sense?
And people that are listening, they probably are not going to see this screen that you're showing. This is from the Center for Disease Control's.gov website.
Yes, that's really important to know. And then the other issue is going to be on the false positives. I've already posted a bunch of studies on this already. What I'll do is I'll pull the study on that up in a second here. I'll let you kind of riff on that for a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, and regarding the stuff you've already talked about with the false positives, it's not that you're saying this doesn't exist. It truly does exist. And it's not that you're saying people are not dying. They truly are dying. But what we're saying is it's really tough when you're looking at the amount of response that's happened based on everything being shut down, when people that are dying from other things are getting tagged as that. And then you have these state-by-state governors coming on the news and saying, oh my goodness, we had 30 more deaths in the past 24 hours or 50 more deaths or whatever. And you don't have any idea of actually how many of those 30 were truly that versus just the naturally occurring 30 deaths that would have happened in that city based on some other respiratory thing.
110%. Yep, that's 100% true. And that's the concern. It's always about proportionality, okay? That's really the key thing. It's always about proportionality. Is what we're doing proportional to what's happening, right? Because we don't want to overshoot in any of these things either. So we got to look at everything in proportionality perspective. I think that's really important. So we already talked about that. Is there anything else, Evan, you wanted to highlight on that?
That's it for that. I just wanted to get back to the real point here, which is that if you're kind of blessed with more time on your hands now, and you're thinking, okay, what can I do to be proactive? That's what you said in the beginning, which is that we want to be more action-based. We want to be more action-oriented as opposed to just having so much fear. You don't know what to do with the fear. If you are fearful, I totally understand, but we want you to channel that. So possibly intermittent fasting, which is going to help promote insulin sensitivity and improve your blood sugar management. This is important for if you're type 2 diabetic. This is important for high blood pressure. That can help reduce that. If you're obese, that can help that. Possibly going ketogenic or close to ketogenic, or maybe cycling in and out of ketosis is going to be helpful as well. This is going to significantly reduce your risk of becoming seriously ill if you were to get infected. That is the point, is that you possibly could get infected, but you want to do as much as you can to reduce your potential risk of severity. And getting blood pressure regulated, getting blood sugar under control, those are going to be very, very important based on what we're looking at here with this whole Italy paper.
100%. And let me go share here one more article with you guys so you guys can see what I'm talking about. All right. Okay, so this is the big thing, right? And we've already kind of talked about, if you guys have been following some of my podcasts on this topic, is the fact that one study right here found 86% of all infections were actually undocumented. Undocumented means you have the antibodies or you actually got the infection, but you have no symptoms. So 86%. That's one out of 7.14 people are actually showing symptoms. And it could be even higher. It could be 10 to 20 symptoms, 10 to 20 people have no symptoms for every one that does have symptoms, okay? So for every 7 to 8 on the low end are going to get the infection and have no symptoms per one, or up to 10 to 20 are going to get the infection, make antibodies, and have no symptoms. That's really, really important because that creates herd immunity, all right? When you get 95% of the population with an infection, after 2 to 3 weeks they're no longer spreading it, they're going to have an immune response. So here's 86% of all infections were undocumented. Here's the whole higher temperature thing, all right? They're looking at different cities in China, and they look at the temperature, and they look at as the temperature increases Celsius, the infection rate drops. And that's important. And that's partly because of UV light kills viruses, and humidity actually makes it harder for viruses to spread. I want you to keep that in the back of your head, guys. And there was one more study here. This is potential false asymptomatic rate, and they're looking at nearly half of even more of the asymptomatic infected individuals reported the active nucleic acid screening might be a false positive. That's important. This kind of supports the whole false positive thing. If you have a test that's half correct, you're going to get more people stacked on. And the other component I want to highlight is, this is an article out of the LA Times, large-scale COVID-19 antibody testing study launched in California. So they're doing a COVID-19 antibody study already because there's only 300 deaths. There's about a 10 to 15x difference between California and New York. That's crazy. When we go look at the United States, we break it down. Let's go look at their stats. And when you compare California, number one, who has a higher homeless population, because of the weather, so you're going to have more transmission because, the homeless are going to be malnourished. They're going to live in tight, close quarters. There's going to be less sanitation, plumbing, all that stuff, right? Look at California. They have 681 total deaths. Let's look at New York. They have 9,385. Okay, we do the math on that. 9,385 divided by 681. That's a 14x difference, nearly 14x difference. And they're supposing the reason why that happened, because there's only about a 2-day difference between social distancing in New York and California. And remember, it takes 2 weeks for social distancing to actually take effect. So 2 days would not explain a 14 to 15x difference. And we also have other countries that didn't really shut down their economy. All right, so for instance, if we just do deaths per 1 million, just as a good reference point, that way we can compare smaller countries. Where's the U.S.? The U.S. is at 67 deaths per 1 million. Where's Sweden at? Ooh, Sweden's just a little bit higher at 91. So they're only one country in between us and Sweden. Sweden didn't shut down their economy, okay? Who else didn't? I can tell you Denmark didn't, and they're actually less than us, okay? I can tell you who else didn't was Brazil.
Yeah, tell us the number since people may not be watching. Some people may be listening. Denmark is 49 deaths per million.
Yeah, Denmark's 49. We also are going to have Brazil here. Let me just do a control F on this so I can find it faster. So Brazil's at 6 deaths per million. I can also tell you who didn't shut down their economy was South Korea. Okay, South Korea didn't shut down their economy either. And South Korea is at 37. Oh, that's South Africa. South Korea is at, if I can find them on here, I'm not sure why they're not there, but they are actually less as well. I'll try to pull them up here in a minute.
That's okay. That's enough. That's enough points. I mean, that's crazy. Oh, there it is.
There
That's Korea.
right there. So they're 4. Yeah, they're under S.Korea.
4 per million.
4.
Wow.
So you can see the U.S. is at 91, and then you can see a couple of countries ahead of us. So the nice thing is we have a decent control, meaning other countries that didn't go to the full extent. And there's a couple of theories out there. What does this do? So number one, by us doing all the quarantine stuff and social distancing, that helps flatten the curve. Now let's see the curve. Here's the curve. All right. We're already at peak. We're already coming down the bell curve now. Okay. I predicted this 2 weeks ago. This would happen like around April 10th, April 11th. It happened April 11th. They actually predicted April 16th, and they backed it off a bit. Okay. Remember, these are the same experts that came in at 2 to 3 million deaths without social distancing. Then with just social distancing being intact, they went from 2 to 3 million to 2 to 300,000. And they went from that to 100,000 to 85,000, 65, and now they're at 60,000 projected deaths. Okay, here it is, 61,545. Now I'll just tell you, that's a massive variance. That's a massive variance. When you go off 10, 20x by plugging in simple variables and you're that far off, that's concerning, okay? That means we have a bad model. But anyway, if we go look at the hospital resources, the whole goal of flattening the curve is so we don't go outside of the shaded area, right? These are all of our resources up here.
Yeah,
These
what
are
he's
all
showing,
of our resources.
for people listening on audio, he's looking at a graph here. There's a big shadowy TP sort of over this dotted line. The TP is the capacity, and the capacity is insanely higher than what the reality of need is for various beds and things like that.
Exactly. So the purple dotted line is kind of where we're actually projected, and then the shadow is kind of where our resources max out. So the whole reason why we do all this social distancing is to flatten the curve. But now that we're on top of the curve and our resources were more than adequate, well, now I think it's time at some point for at least healthy people to start going and getting back out there and becoming asymptomatic, getting antibodies. They already know what's happening in California. That's why they are doing the study right now, right? Why have so many people in California not gotten sick compared to New York? It's because there's antibodies, and they're actually doing this study over at Stanford right now, testing antibodies at a large scale. So that's important to note, okay?
Well, I'm going to sneak out. I'm going to sneak out of this podcast, but I think if you have more things to say, don't let me end your podcast short, but I got to run.
Sounds good, Evan. Good chatting with you. We will be in touch this week. Take care.
Sounds good. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. All right, so just to keep on rolling with you guys here, let's go look at the stats. So the U.S. is already over the bell curve. So the problem, a lot of people interpret statistics as a logarithmic thing like this. So they kind of look at it as like, woo, it just keeps on going forever, right? That's kind of how they look at it. But no, it typically works like a bell curve, all right? So you can see our cases are already dropping for the last week, which is great. Now, again, are these case numbers correct? We don't necessarily know if the case numbers are correct, but if we're using the same faulty testing for everyone, we at least have the same baseline, right? So we have the case numbers dropping. we have the deaths actually dropping as well. You can see that. So we have a nice decline here on the bell curve, which shows us we are on the right track, okay? And let's compare us to Italy, all right? Italy deaths totally dropping, and daily new cases totally dropping as well. So we're on the right track there. So my general suggestion is people that are healthy and people that are younger, the best thing we can do is get herd immunity going via natural passive exposure. So eventually at some point when we start getting back out there, the healthy people getting out there first will be the best thing that we can do, because that will, one, we'll get over it fast, or we have a 90% chance of having no symptoms, and then we create this natural passive immunity that will last at a minimum a few years and could even last decades, right? Think about every childhood illness. Chickenpox, right? I got chickenpox. I never had to worry about chickenpox again. That's a lifetime thing, or at least a 3 or 4 decade thing. But either way, a couple of years on the short end, decades on the long end. But one thing that's interesting, look at India. India is a big country, right? India is over 1 billion people, and we know like places like Bombay or other areas where they're close quarters, maybe not the best plumbing, maybe a little bit inhospitable in regards to that stuff, cleanliness. Their cases are pretty darn low, and their deaths are already dropping. They're already kind of trending down a little bit, and they only had 300 deaths in a country of 1.2 million people, I think. So I think what you're seeing here is more antibody, more herd immunity stuff, right? This is more herd immunity. This is India. And again, the data is coming from worldmeters.info, all right? Same thing with Italy. Italy's already on the downward track. We already talked about the study here in LA and Stanford where they're looking at the antibody testing. I've actually already ordered antibody testing for myself, and I'll be getting it tested really soon. And then we talked about the diagnostic criteria and why it's a little bit suspect. I think that's really important to kind of highlight because it's probable or presumed. And that's concerning because when there's a lot of hysteria and symptoms overlap, which they do, okay, symptoms overlap, probable and presumed is a really easy logical step to make, okay? And then I wanted to highlight the study here. So this is the 50% false positive rate there. And then we have at a minimum 86% of infections are undocumented, meaning they're asymptomatic, okay? Meaning you have the antibodies, you have the infection, but no symptoms. That's 7.14 people are going to get the antibodies and no infection for every one that gets it. And that's on the low end. It could be even as high as a 95%, which would be 19 people out of 20 actually are asymptomatic, okay? Keep that in the back of your head. And then the major mechanism I want to highlight here is going to be the blood sugar mechanism. This study here looking at type 2 diabetes and metabolic improvement. What they found is your phagocytes, which are they're an activity that your immune cells do, like neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes. They act like Pac-Men and Pac-Women, and they gobble up and invaginate viruses. So here's a virus here, and it's going to eat this virus up, and it's going to digest it and break it down, okay? This process gets weaker when we have high levels of insulin. And so here they say glycemic control is related to phagocytic activity. Our results suggest that improvement in the phagocytic activity can be added to the beneficial effects of metabolic optimization. Man, people write these things as if they don't want you to understand what's going on. What they're saying is, hey, the less insulin we make and the better our blood sugar is, the more your phagocytes are going to gobble up viruses and bacteria in your body. So better immune health. So we have better blood sugar and better insulin levels equal better immune levels. I wish they could just write it that simple in a bullet point type of thing. And then we know, just to bring it up for you guys, so we have New England Journal of Medicine. I'm going to pull this up for you guys. And then we'll do COVID-19 patients. And I already pulled this study up recently, but here you go. This came out last month, March 30th. And what I wanted to highlight in this study was the diabetes mechanism. So you're going to see right here, about 58% had diabetes mellitus, 58%. And again, this is a small patient sample, but I just wanted to highlight that because it's very, very important because we know the mechanism of blood sugar issues and weakened immune response. So if I can just get people to just focus on sunlight, natural vitamin D, getting their blood sugar under control, while at the same time getting on some things to support your immune system. I've already talked about it. Vitamin A, C, and D are going to be great things first line on the nutrient side. If we can stack in NAC or glutathione, even better. And then if you want to add a immune booster on the herbal or medicinal mushroom side, we do reishi, astragalus as a good kind of stack. Now, in my line, I have a product called Immunosupreme that has a combination of those in it, as well as one called a Virusid. That's kind of like my back label one that I'm doing now, my back order one, because my other one's getting sold out. So I have two products that I'm personally taking right now, my family is taking, but those are options if you guys kind of want a combo product. If not, you guys can also piecemeal some of the general suggestions that I'm making. I hope that helps. Let me just see if I have any questions, guys, and I'm happy to help you out. All right, let's see what's up. Let me go into questions for you guys. Okay, here we go. What about the role of processed food in lowering immunity? 100%. Why would processed food do that? Processed food tends to be higher in junky carbohydrates and refined sugar, and also bad fats. So those things are going to weaken your cells, and they're going to increase the insulin and weaken your immune system. Yeah, Kathy writes in, makes me sick how people are falling for the fear-mongering. Thank you guys for doing what you're doing. Yep, absolutely. I appreciate it, Kathy. James writes in, Dr. J, Nevin, does high BP groups of deaths differentiate between uncontrolled high BP or controlled BP with people controlling with meds? It's going to go with co-morbidities. So if someone has a diagnosis or a disease, but they're actually managing it and their blood pressure is normal, they're probably not going to fall in that category. There are multiple people that are going to have blood pressure problems primarily because of blood sugar. And then blood sugar is going to create kidney stress, and then kidney stress is going to create blood pressure, as well as blood pressure is also going to be intimately connected with heart disease. So it just depends kind of where you're at. If you're on a medication and you're managing your blood pressure and it's under 120/80, you're probably going to be fine. But I mean, in general, why are you on the blood pressure medication? Because a lot of times those medications over the long term actually create more problems, because a lot of them work by being a diuretic. And when you have a diuretic, you're going to be peeing out a lot of important minerals that are actually important for the heart to work properly, like potassium and magnesium. So you just got to make sure you're supporting the nutrients so your heart works good too. Justin and Evan, I was wondering if I'm a high risk for COVID since I have HSD. You have to give me the abbreviation HSD. I could probably figure it out. In arthritis and mast cell activation. I do eat healthy, take vitamins, and light exercise. I'm 51. Okay, let me just see if I can figure out what you mean by HSD. Let's see here. Nope, does not come up here for me. Oh, is that the hypermobility spectrum disorder? So yeah, the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome issue. Yeah, that's an autoimmune thing that affects connective tissue. Yeah, you definitely would be at higher risk. It just depends if you're managing it now or not. Like, are you stable with it or not? Of course, if you're not stable and you don't have the good habits that we've talked about, then you're definitely at risk. TNF alpha, IL-6 concentrations are high in arthritis. Yeah, I mean, if you have an arthritic issue that's going to be especially autoimmune based, your immune system will be more stressed. And if it's more stressed, then it won't have the resources to fight other infections appropriately. So, of course, glutathione and vitamin D is going to be one of the easiest low-hanging fruits to modulate your immune system outside of just fresh air, clean water, and a good whole food paleo template favoring the lower side, the lower carbohydrate side. Doc JC writes in, great jobs, guys. Have you heard about the FDA-approved blood purification devices? Seem to figure it out. They have been mistreating to some degree thus far. Yeah, so a couple of things. I'm not sure what device you're talking about, but the big issue that we're finding is that there's a lot of hypoxia. So most like flu causes more like pneumonia. The problem with the pneumonia is we're not quite seeing that as much. We're seeing more hypoxia, partly because the virus is destroying hemoglobin. And hemoglobin carries oxygen. Hemoglobin also has iron attached to it. So when you destroy hemoglobin, you're also releasing a whole bunch of iron, which creates a lot more oxidative stress and inflammation. So part of the underlying theory is maybe giving blood transfusions or purifying the blood in a way to get the iron out and add fresh hemoglobin back in so we can carry oxygen. The next thing is let's get them on maybe a CPAP or just increase the oxygenation, because the ventilator's not fixing that. And in a lot of places, when you intubate and you do ventilator under higher pressure, you can create damage to the lungs. So a lot of people are rethinking how ventilators are being used. So my general suggestion is, if you have a family member or yourself going under a ventilator, one, try to maximize oxygen first. Use a CPAP. Of course, on the conventional side, I would talk to your doctor and ask about hydroxychloroquine. I would ask about the azithromycin, as long as you don't have heart issues. And I'd ask about adding the 230 milligrams of zinc. I'd follow that acute protocol. And again, that's going to be more defensive or offensive approach, but it's kind of late stage offensive approach. Do all the nutrient things ahead of time, and that I think will help even better. But in general, cleaning out the blood, getting fresh hemoglobin in, pulling the iron out. Also, if you have access to hyperbaric chamber oxygen therapy, where you can increase the oxygen saturation, that may be a really good option. It's BS, it's a virus, it's a blood disorder. So basically the virus is destroying the hemoglobin. So yeah, I do agree. The virus is destroying the hemoglobin, and the hemoglobin carries the oxygen, thus the hypoxia. Yeah. Sydney writes, I strongly agree the news is false. Toronto, old man, 94. Blackfeet sent home that died. They claim it's a virus. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of issues going on here. Just we look at the facts. Don't ever, take a single person story, emotional piece, puff piece. It's sad that someone dies. I mean, all lives matter, right? But in general, when we look at things, we have to look at it over a broad spectrum, and we have to know what the comorbidities are at. Let's see here. It's Elon Musk, satellites. I'm not sure about that. I can't speak to that, Ben. A lot of people saying it's not I'm not sure. I mean, I just know that something is being tested, something's coming back up, something's affecting the immune system. I'm not sure if there's data that it's not a virus, but I think there's something there for sure. Let's see here. What to do about intrinsic factor to absorb vitamin B12 in leaky gut patients. So, I mean, fix the gut. But in the meantime, you can always take high quality methylated B12 sublingually to improve the absorption. What's the best sugar substitute? Any recommendations? You can also do an organic high quality stevia. Do it in moderation, because when sugar hits your tongue, it still can spit out a little bit of insulin. So you don't want to be training your body to taste sugar and to feel sugar all the time, even if it's stevia or monk fruit, because you will maybe release a little bit of insulin. So you got to be careful with that. So 80-20 on that, meaning 20% of the time you can use a little bit of high quality stevia without maltodextrin, or monk fruit's a good option. Patty writes in, thank you for sharing your facts so we can make our own decision. Excellent. Thanks, Patty. Any over-the-counter medications to manage if we get it? So if you actually get it, the first thing, it just depends if you're in that risk factor group, and it depends on how severe it is. Because most people, this thing won't be that bad, right? So 90% are going to be asymptomatic. And out of that 10% that get it, 80% will be totally mild, right? A little bit of an ache, like kind of feel like you have a mild flu or a mild cold for a couple days, and it's done, okay? And it's done. I know my brother actually got it. My brother works at a hospital and tests for COVID-19 patients, and he felt like he got exposed. It was a 2-day kind of cold for him, and he was up and over it. But we're going to know afterwards, because we're going to test everyone with antibodies after the fact. Someone with IBD is more at risk, even though not taking immune suppressant medications. So Riley, with yourself, because I know your history that you have Crohn's, I would say only if you're flaring. If you're flaring with your Crohn's, and your immune system is really stressed because of a flare, and you have blood in your stool and you're not absorbing nutrition, I would say you're definitely more at risk. But if you're keeping everything at bay because the inflammation's under control, you're digesting, you're absorbing, I would think you're going to be in great shape. The question is, are you in the middle of a flare or not? And if you're not, then that gives you a much better chance to be totally fine. When dealing with iron deficiency and infections, do you recommend taking iron food supplements on its own, or adding some probiotics or herbs to the mix? Well, it depends. So, I mean, in the context of COVID-19, I would not want to be adding any additional iron unless we're someone that's a vegetarian and we know iron is very low, or a woman that's menstruating quite a bit, or we know that we're not dealing with an infection. We're just dealing with a malabsorption issue, and or maybe a poor diet issue because we're vegan or vegetarian. So those could be possible players. It just depends. I would need more context. Tina writes in, what dose of vitamins for children 6 years old? Well, I mean, I would need a little bit more reference on that. Like what? For vitamin C, for cod liver oil? I can just give you like vitamin D. You'd probably be fine with 2,000 to 3,000 IUs of vitamin D right now, at least maybe for a month and retest. I would say on the vitamin C side, you could probably do 1 gram to 2. Just monitor loose stools. Your child's stools are getting loose. We just back off on that. That'd be a really good, first thing. Okay. And again, there are some herbal immune supports that you can get for your kids. I use one called Immunoberry for my son. I have a couple, and we use that, and we do like 1 full dropper twice a day on that. All right, guys, hope that makes sense. Any other questions for me? Let me know. It was fun chatting. I just want to bring you guys some good intel. I don't want you guys to be scared. I want you guys to be in the driver's seat. No one's talking about offensive measures that can be done. Everyone's talking about flattening the curve, which I think we've done, right? I showed you the data on that. We've already done that. I think at this stage of the game, when the right health authorities come out and say it's time, I think getting a lot of the healthy people out there first is going to be smart because we're going to develop more herd immunity, and that will prevent the infection from being passed around. All right. And then if you're in that really compromised group, then it makes more sense to me to be a little bit more quarantined, keep a little bit more distance in the meantime, and let everyone have a good chance to develop herd immunity first. And then number 3, do all the immune boosting things, especially if you're of that older age. Make sure you're digesting your protein well. If you need some hydrochloric acid, get that in there. Get your vitamin D up, get your C up. If you need to proactively be on some glutathione or NAC, do that in the meantime to really support your immune system. And just kind of use common sense. I mean, people know when they get sick or if they're immunocompromised, they kind of keep distances, right? So I think just kind of do that. And if you're stronger and healthier, I'm okay. Still use common sense. Listen to what your local people are saying. Some places in the country are really strict right now. Some aren't. I don't want you to get you guys arrested and tell you to do the wrong thing. But just do all the right things offensively to keep your guys' immune system strong. Why are young people with strong immune systems dying? So that's news crap, right? Of course, people will die that are young. Of course. The problem is we don't know anything about their background, and we need to know the statistical significance of that. Are we talking 0.2%, 0.1% of the population? We have to know it as a percentage so we can get a perception. I can tell you, like in the state of Massachusetts, where I'm from, I saw an article saying not one person under the age of 60 has died of this, and that was in Mass. I've seen it in Italy. The average age of death in Italy was 79 and a half. So what you're saying is not statistically significant by any means. And just to kind of give you guys an idea, the flu this season so far has killed 150 pediatric patients. That's between 0 and 18, okay? So you're not seeing a puff piece. Think about it. Flu season's what, 90 days, 100 days? You could almost see 1 to 2 people killed every day of the flu, but you're not seeing an expose on those young people killed by the flu every day. You're not, okay? Because there's not an emotional investment. There is now. So just know that that's happened before, and the media has responded differently. Now it's happening again, and they're responding differently. So just think, right? Context is everything. Context brings you comfort, okay? Context brings you comfort. Is coconut or date sugar a good substitute? Coconut sugar is going to have a glycemic index of 15, so it'll be okay. It's still sugar. Date sugar more natural, but it's still going to be sugar. So that's okay if you want to put it on that 20% cheat side. I typically would recommend something that would have no sugar in it, and that would be more of the stevia or the monk fruit first. Maybe a little bit of birch tree xylitol second or third. Be careful, animals can, if they eat it, they could die. So be very careful with that. And then the more natural, slower sugars may be second or third, but again, they are still sugars. Is liposomal vitamin C equivalent to vitamin C from food sources? So vitamin C liposomal, you'll need less of a dose to increase your vitamin C levels when compared to a buffered vitamin C, number 1. And then number 2, food sources, I mean, it just depends. It would probably absorb a little bit better for sure because it's liposomal. Is it okay to take zinc in how many milligrams? So I would say on the zinc, you could take anywhere between 10 to 30 milligrams. You could do a zinc sulfate or a zinc aspartate. Those would be totally fine. The zinc bisglycinate, usually a good zinc bound to a good clean amino acid is going to be a good one to do. 10 to 30 milligrams. And again, in the COVID-19 Dr. Zelenko kind of clinical trial, or I should say, more of a case study. He's at 800 patients. Not one have passed from COVID. And they had, I think, a 99.9 success rate. And he was doing 220 to 230 milligrams of zinc. That's very acute. Now, again, people get confused. COVID-19 is the disease. SARS-CoV-2 is the virus. SARS-CoV-2 is the virus. COVID-19 is the disease. It's kind of like HIV is the virus. AIDS is the disease. Okay, just kind of keep that in mind. People are conflating the two. Can I still order supplements from your store? I usually have them shipped to Detroit, but can't cross the border now. Will you ship me in Canada? Yes, we can, Dale. Absolutely no problem. Sometimes it's a little bit of a delay with customs right now, but yep, we have no problem doing that. I have a lot of Canadian patients. Mark writes in, could sudden loss of eyebrow hair be due to low thyroid? Yes, it could be. Also, see if there's low temperature with it. And if you're concerned, we can always get you tested thyroid-wise, Mark. So if you need someone to order that for you, go to justinhealth.com/shop. Click on the lab test section, and there'll be a place for a full thyroid blood test that you can click on, order, and get a prescription for, and go to your local Quest lab even today if you wanted. Labs are pretty sanitary and sterile. They have good protocols. Or worst case, just wait a couple more weeks till everything is good to go. All right, guys. Hey, it was phenomenal chatting with everyone. I hope you guys have a phenomenal Easter weekend. I did here as well. A lot of good fun stuff. I'll be back maybe even later on today for a live Q&A on all topics outside of COVID. And you guys, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you enjoyed, give me a thumbs up. Sharing is caring. Comments down below. Share it to friends and family. And if you want to reach out to me personally for a consult or be a patient, we'll put the link down below for you guys. All right, have a good one. Take care, y'all. Bye.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com.